Today is August 3rd, 25th year. Me, Tesla Leila Hugaeva-Tinikashvili, author of Discovery of Psychic Energy and Scientific Revolution Energetics. I'm continue to giving my report, my account of criminal events around me last few years. I have been beginning in my previous video. First of all, I would like to focus your attention on the fact that fact of poisoning me was not accidental. It was regular, a systematic action program. They have been poisoning me constantly. I mentioned that in September 24th, I was in hospital last time, and I did not go there through natural causes. It was also a result of poisoning me. One of assistants, her name was Elvira Zangieva. Recommended me woman with medicament for my wound, and that woman have been selling me that medicament for 2 years. And there was no any effect. There was always blue and green bondage. I mean, my wound was blue and green with cyanide stick, and he kept saying me that there is cyanide stick infection in my blood, and that I have to take in antibiotics and to put in my wound some acid, and then when this cyanide stick will be dead, then convalescence of my wound will begin. She made me to expect elimination of cyanide stick, and it was only in hospital when I understood that it was she. Her name was Yelena, who was poisoning me with that cyanide stick. Before I got to hospital, I had very high temperature not less than 40 every day, higher 41 to often 41 for 10 days or so. And I invited that woman. She called herself doctor. I don't think she was doctor. She was not doctor. But she said that she is doctor. And I invited her to observe my wound. And she said that it is in finest condition. It is convalescence. It was never better than those days. I had 41 every day. I was one step from death, one step. And when ultimately I got in hospital, all of them were sure that I won't survive. This was my real condition. And when I asked that woman, then what was going with me, such high temperature, she said that it was not any connection with my wound, but it was only maybe some problems with inspiration and so on. She not only lied on horrible condition of my wound, she also sent me in wrong direction, to ignore signals of my wound. And this was time when I understood that that woman has been systematically poisoning me. This is how I got last time in hospital in September 24th. That time when this woman told me, Yelena, I knew her entire name, and her phone is in my online Sberbank, so that if investigation will have place, I know how to present the woman with a cyanide stick in her medicament. But now I forget her second name. I don't need it. I just want to say to you that this poisoning was systematic, regular act, not some accident with that woman I have narrated you in my previous video. And that time I survived. And I wanted to say that when she was here telling me that my wound is in best condition ever, she told it on the wound filled with pus and stench of pus. So that for all of us, my sister was here, and Roland was here also, was apparent that she is lying. And she was lying all the same. And when that time I survived, uh, I cannot say anything uh, bad of my doctors. They helped me in hospital. Th- Many thanks to hospital and doctors. And uh, I'm trying to pass to the situation with the day we left hospital. There was a special situation. The thing is that it appeared that Roland was visiting my hospital, not with some special goal. And this goal was to take me finally from hospital to the house in Sunja, which now belongs to Ruslan. House from which I refused to live there all my life, especially after death of my father in that house. And they knew it very well, because all those years which lapsed since the time, they have been forcing me to live in that house, to get me under their control. And it was a very hard struggle to renounce, to put a strict division between our property, to put a clear-cut line of demarcation between our property and all our communications. And I won that struggle. I won my own house, and I said with all precision, and I will never, not only live in that house in Sunja where my father was poisoned, but I never visited again in my life. I told them this with all precision and with all seriousness and earnestness. And now they again returned to their fixed idea to take me to that horrible house, now in property of Ruslan, to get me under their control. And Roland was trying to play friends, to give visits in my hospital, and then to take me from hospital to Sunja. It was my sister who saved my life, now second time. First time she saved me when I was in Skliv, when in Moscow my backbone was crushed and I got to Sklifosovsky hospital. There was no one to take me from hospital at home. No one. Ruslan sent his wife. She came and said that she is very busy and she must leave. She cannot take me at home, and that I will stay in Sklifosovsky to the day I am all right again in my conditions. This meant that she left me there, and it was my sister who came and transported me to my house. That time there was no one to help me except my sister. And now again, when Roland was sent to take me from hospital to house in Sunja, it was my sister who took me here in my house. I was in such bad condition that September 24th year that they had big hopes that I will die, but I did not die. I began convalesce. My wound began getting better. After we, with my sister, arrived here and my home from hospital, we stopped any connections with Roland. I told you that he tried to play friends with me and with my sister in hospital. But when my sister told him that she is under constant pressure of some bandit, he was also Armenian, he said to her straightforward that it was her paranoia, and she stopped any communications with Roland. I stopped with him communications when I understood that he was going to take me from hospital to Suja. Helpless, invalid, and if we stopped any communications with him, with Roland, with Ruslan, I never talked after death of my father. There was a fight, constant fight, but not communication with Ruslan. And when we got here, and my recovery became apparent for them. Recovery, I mean that I was not again dying, and that my length of my life was indefinite again, which did not suited them. Ruslan, after my accusation of him in office of prosecute after death of my father, was always alert to eliminate me in some way, in madhouse or any other way, but eliminate me, because it was such heavy blow on his reputation. This is why he did his best to shut me up in madhouse, to say that he is mad and he words have no any meaning to restore his reputation. I'm trying to say that when they realized that I'm not dying, Ruslan again have sent to my house medicament. I know that it was poisoned medicament, because we were open enemies after death of my father, and my death is his blue dream from that day. I know that he couldn't send me nothing but poison. I know that medicament was poison for my wound. Moreover, he suggested aunt of his wife to be my assistant. I don't talk with them all. This woman, aunt of his wife, is doctor, was doctor. Now he's on her ninth decade. She's a very old woman, but energetic. She's not sick or ill. She's energetic. She lives in my father's house in Sumja. She's well. But the thing is, I never doubted fact that it was she who has chosen poison for my father. They wouldn't risk to apply to stranger in such question. And she always hated me for my application to the office of prosecutor after death of my father, though I never mentioned her name. And now they send me medicament for my wound and offer to make aunt of his wife my assistant. The question is why assistant became central and pivotal for murderers, and it still remains central and pivotal. My dear poor mother loved her sons with all her heart, and she cannot imagine that they could send me poison, for example, that aunt of her son's wife is offering herself as my assistant for some insidious purposes. It It was my mother who brought me this news. For I don't associate with anyone else who associate with Ruslan and with me simultaneously. It could be only my mother. I damped that medicament, of course, and said that I would never let that woman to be my assistant. And those time I escaped poisoning, but and my wound continued to convalesce. It was convalescing, and I understood again that medicament of that woman with cyanide stick was poisoned, because while she was selling me her medicament for my wound, it was never getting better, and now it became getting better, smaller and smaller. It was a time when my mother lived with Roland. He still lives in her house. And they knew that I was of high opinion of medicament with zinc. So they tried medicament with zinc. My mother brought it and said that Roland bought it in apteka. Only once I used it, and now my wound is again bleeding, temperature getting bigger and bigger. Though I applied treatment with antibiotics, I'm better, but my wound is again in worst condition. I repeat that my mother never can suspect that her sons can give me poison, and moreover to use her loving motherly hands to devolve me poison. She would never, such thought will never cross her mind. He would never believe it. This is entirely fault of Ruslan and Roland. I'm just trying to say that my wounds could be well many time ago if they wasn't been poisoning me, have not been poisoning me all this time. This what I'm trying to say, that this last time it was Roland who gave that medicament. I did not ask for it. I just now understand that how they analyze data they hear from my house. I praised a few times this medicament with zinc, and they sent me medicament with zinc. It was only once I used it and I understood that it is poison. And this is why I did not go in hospital. That I understood that it was only once. And yet again, my wound stopped convalescing. It is moisture, it is bloody, it is smell, it is bad, worst conditions. After my father's death, there was never communication between me and my brothers. There was only fight, constant fight. When, in the day of the funeral of my father, I already understood that he was poisoned by Ruslan and his wife and my brothers. I understood it in the day of funerals. And when people was gone in the evening and we assembled in the room late in evening, all of them in black costumes, I directly said them that they poisoned my father, and that I know that the goal was to loot me, my sister, my aunts, to take our property, and that they have hidden will of my father, official document from notarius. I knew that such document existed, and I asked them, where is that document? They said there was never such document. And then Ruslan said, we will decide, solve, settle everything juridically. It was his word, juridically. And I asked him on the subject of his conscience. He said that conscience is nothing, absurdity, and that he will settle questions with heritage, father's heritage, or legacy, I don't know exact word, through juridically process, and that he don't want to know anything of my father's will, and from this moment began fight, because it it was Ruslan who said that my scientific work is not acceptable for him, and that he will do everything to deprive me of any financial resources to continue my work. That my father has spoiled me, urging my scientific work, and that now when my father's power was in his hands, my scientific work will come to the end. It was his words. My sister renounced heritage, father's heritage. She took absolutely nothing from father's property, absolutely nothing. It was her own will when she observed the situation. They tried to make me to renounce my part of heritage too. But I said that I will take everything that my father left for me, because I needed that resources to continue my scientific work. And I knew that it was great pride of my father, my scientific work. He did everything to help me to accomplish my work, and he would be very, very proud to see me with triumph of my scientific work. And I said that I will fight for my part of heritage, and I will never let them to stop mine and my father's efforts in this very, very important scientific work, because my father was the half of all my achievements. The half, and maybe more, because without my father I would do nothing. And this was time the fight began. I'm trying to say that even this house, which counted as worst part of real estate of my father's, even this worst part, I got through hard war. I had to war to get it in my property. But the day I got it, I saved not only my life but my son's. Because all the time after death of my father, I has been sitting here and writing all my books, and I wouldn't be able to do it without this piece of a quiet place. Next time, when I had to fight for this house as my own piece of property where I can continue my scientific work, was after assault of my backbone. When I was nearly dead, lying in hospital, Sklifosovsky hospital in Moscow, in resuscitation. It is a special story on my days spent in resuscitation in Sklifosovsky hospital. Now I cannot expand on this subject. I'm going to say that when they saw me again absolutely helpless, they renewed their attempts to take my house from me immediately. First, they tried to leave me in Sklifosovsky. I told you that no one came to take me from Sklifosovsky to my house. It was my sister, only my sister, who took me alone and arrived all together with me here. And first time I was in my mother's department, in my mother's flat for a few months. This house was standing empty, waiting for me. It was my property. It was my victory in a fight for father's heritage, to take this little piece of property to continue my scientific work here. And while I was laying in my mother's flat, Ruslan and Roland energetically renewed their attempts to take this house from me. They even forced me to make power for attorney to sell this flat. They kept saying that my medical treatment needs great sums of money, though both operation was made on budget money. Hospital paid for my operations. They paid nothing for them, absolutely nothing. And that they like this word, I am indebted to them. I said them that from the day of my father, they are indebted to me and to my sister, and that I don't want their help. When my sister brought me here, Ruslan made Roland to call me on phone. I was lying, I was dead man. I couldn't even sit like now. I could only lay on my back and nothing else. And Ruslan made Roland call on my phone and say that now when I am in such condition, absolutely helpless, they propose me their help with on following conditions. He said this, on following conditions. I must make public statement and recant my words on accusation them in poisoning my father's deathbed. This was their words. I was dead. I was laying on my back. I was absolutely helpless, but I was in the house of my mother. I did not owe them anything. I had my own house, this house. I had help of my sister, and I said them very firmly that I don't need their help, that I never needed their help and don't need it now and never will be needing their help, and that I will never recant my words, because it is truth. They have poisoned my father. It is truth, and I cannot change facts which had place. It is only them who make purge their conscience from this horrible act through public confession. This was my reply to them. And then this affair with trying to sell my house began. They tried to get me under their entire control. And then Ruslan will find devices to present me mad. It was his dream from the moment of I made official accusation him in murdering his father. It was his fixed idea to present me as mad, because he believed it to be the only way to restore his reputation. And then began their attack on my house. They made me to sign document, power for attorney to sell my house, and last moment I tore it up, and that saved my work. I am narrating this to make evident the fact that their goal was always to deprive me independence, to stop my scientific work, and to present me as mad person, not person which writes genius scientific books, but merely mad person. And I did everything to prove this. From the day Ruslan closed me in madhouse, it was March 8th, 15th year. It was Women's International Women's Day, March 8th, when they closed me in madhouse, and I spent there 3 days till afternoon of 10th March. And already on 22nd March, my backbone was crushed in the night between 21st and 22nd March. 21, 22 March, the night between these two dates, my backbone was crushed. I have been through 3 surgeries on my backbone. One in Sklifosovsky and 2 in Republic, Northern Ossetia, in Beslan. Three surgery, all of them on budget resources. And when Ruslan understood that his plan to take my independence with this house was ruined, failed, because I had thrown away his power for attorney to sell my house. Then he persuaded my mother while I was laying in bed in her department. He persuaded my mother to mix in my food neuroleptics, antipsychotics. This is poison. These drugs give to people in radical mental disorder only as least evil. When there is no any other way to calm down person. This is real poison, and every doctor knows this. And Ruslan, when I was laying in Sklifosovsky resuscitation, signed permission to treat me with antipsychotics. Do you understand? Dying person in resuscitation department, he signed permission to treat with neuroleptics, antipsychotics, neuroleptics, poison. When I was laying in bed in my mother's house, he again returned to this idea. When his idea to deprive me my independence with this house failed, to idea with mixing in my food antipsychotics, neuroleptics, and he persuaded my mother to do it. I discovered the fact soon and she admitted that he persuaded her that it was a remedy for my recovery. And then I was getting better, and I returned here in my house and start again my scientific work. I wrote far more books in this condition after this horrible attack on my backbone here in my house, and it was my father's heritage, my father's care when he was alive, which gave the world, which afforded me to work, and finally gave the world discovery of psychic energy. For anyone who knows what is concentration of abstract thought, knows that conditions with quiet place to work is indispensable to accomplish the scientific work. I'm trying to say that all this was done with the great help of my father and with great resistance, with great attack against it of my brothers. They did everything to deprive me of any opportunity to continue my scientific work, while my father provided any condition to accomplish this work. Now this must be apparent for you. What a nightmare must be for a man whose dream is to introduce me to the world as a mad person, saying nonsense. What a nightmare for him must be a possibility that my scientific work will be broadly acknowledged in the world. He tries to say that accusation against him is nothing because I'm insane, and what will mean the fact that I'm not insane but a genius making science of such importance. You can understand what a nightmare for Ruslan is now my fight for my scientific work, and that he's in panic and he's doing everything to eliminate me somehow. Now, passing again to my last hospital in September 24th year. I told you that in the same year, in spring, I got in hospital in autumn, but in spring there was assault on my mother. I told you in previous video on that call of wicked girl who imitated my voice, saying that he's dying and demanding all the money my mother had. and that my mother was in bitter condition after that assault. She gave them all her money, but it was not money that made her sick. It was adversity, it was sorrow. I'm returning to this fact because at that time Ruslan did everything to calm this fact, to neutralize this fact of assault on my mother. I did everything to prevent any legal case, opening of any legal case in police. And I, on my part, on the contrary, did everything to open legal case in police, to prosecute offenders, criminals, to punish assault on my old sick mother, this bottomless cynicism, this outraging motherly love and motherly rended heart with invalid daughter. I did everything. I wrote again in site of government of Russia demanding open legal case to prosecute criminals. At the same time, Ruslan persuaded my mother to say that there was nothing, no one called her phone, no one demanded her money imitating my dying voice, and no one took the money. It was 100,000 rubles for everything my mother had. She gave them. And she even prevented her on that time to associate this fact that she was not only made mockery but also looted. She prevented her to say this to me, to communicate this fact to me. I didn't know first that she was also looted on considerable sum of money for our family. It was everything, her savings, all her savings. And to deny the fact of assault. It was my fortune that I had time to record on video her evidence of assault. I twice made record and both time post this video in internet. And had I not posted this in internet, this video with her evidence, Ruslan would have denied any assault on my mother and made her to keep silence, to deny it also. It was me who insisted on a legal case for prosecuting criminals. Anyway, they did not find real criminals, of course, and they made forgery case with accusing some innocent from these crime people. Forgery case. But there was legal case, and it was my insistence. Ruslan did everything to hush the fact that there was assault on my mother and she was looted. The money they did not give her back. It was that end of spring and the beginning of summer when Roland came from India last time. And it was that summer of 24th year when Sevak Oganesyan was brought with my neighbors, 3 old women, to my house for first and the last time. I have never allowed him not only in, I never opened door to him after that single time neighbors brought him here to my washing machine. My mother kept trying to reconcile her children. She never could understand and cannot understand now the abyss between her daughters and her sons. And she tried to make us friends. And this was exactly what Ruslan needed, because every evil thrives on treachery. He needed to call me friend, to say that he closed me in mental house because I need therapy, and it was his brotherly care to shut me up in madhouse, not his hate of enemy. Evil thrives on treachery. They have to be friends with their victim. I knew it always, especially when I observed so much facts of my own experience of such treachery. But when I read this in so precise definition in book of Erich Fromm, Anatomy of Destructiveness, it was like revelation. He says there that even savages, most evil of them, practice this treachery, that they say openly that if they want to kill someone, they will make friends with him, and that when murder have place in their community, they seek for person who tried to friend his victim before killing it. And I was so tired from that attempts of Ruslan to make these forgery friends with me. I was also trying for ostentation to say that he's my friend and that he forgiven to the insane person all his absurd words on accusation him is in murder of his father, and that he's my best friend, and it is only his attempt to bring me therapy, not to distract my brains, that he so heavily attempt to close me in madhouse. And I told you that this autumn, when I was in hospital, he again sent Roland to play friends, visiting his sister in hospital, with only goal to take me from the hospital to their house in Sumja under their complete control. It is now house of Ruslan. Then when my sister brought me back at my home, fierce attempts to take me from this house through support of Sevak Oganesyan began. They failed there with Roland, and they renewed their attempts to take me from my house, now with Sevak Oganesyan, whose activity was getting graver and graver. I must observe that this second time when Ruslan engaged his brother Roland in treachery, that first time was treachery of his father, and that first time Roland got very sick, not only with regretting and crying on his treachery deed against his father, but ultimately he got sick physically. I didn't saw him, but my mother and my cousins told me that he was in worst physical condition under his psychotropic therapy in madhouse. And he was laying in bed and losing weight and calling himself dead man. Psychotropic therapy destroying brains destroys certainly entire organism. It is poison. And it was his journey to India which saved his life that time. And now again, when Ruslan involved Roland in the second treachery against his family, now with me, when he sent him in my hospital to take me ultimately to his house in Sumja, where my father was poisoned. He again endangered his brother's life. My mother said me, I told you that after that incident when Roland, there was conflict between Roland and my sister because Roland kept saying to my sister to leave my room in hospital, that he will take me at home. And my sister saved my life when she did not comply and took me here in my house. But there was conflict between them on this subject, where to take me from hospital. My sister said that I went to my house and I have right to go to my house. And he kept sending her away from my room in hospital. And then me and my sister stopped any communication with him. We understood that it was again treachery of our brothers. And that time in hospital, I knew one old woman with God's soul. She is Protestant, from Protestant church. I know her many years because I had regularly dropped in hospital, and she was there working as a cleaner. Old, kind, generous woman with pure, innocent heart, a working woman. And she agreed to visit me at house after hospital. And she understood there was going some conflict between me and my brothers, and I explained her situation. I presented her my book on brothers who gave and asked her to show it in her church. I told her that I am tired, sick and tired from their treachery, from their forgery attempts to make friends. I told her that there is only way, and every Christian know it, to purge his conscience, to make public confession of their crimes. And I told her that she is my witness, that I demand them to say truth. And before this is not the case, all their attempts to play friends is just treachery. And by this time, my mother and cousins began to say that Roland is again sick, that he lost 30 kilograms, that his head he had heart attack and had to apply to ambulance. I told them that it was all Ruslan to blame, it was Ruslan to be blamed, because it was his fault, it was his guilt against his brothers for involving him in treachery, for involving their brothers in treachery against their family. First time and now second time. And I persist in my accusation of Ruslan in treachery. And I persist that there is no any friends between evil hiding his sins and honest people. And I told this to my friend from hospital. Her name is Tsinari. I told Tsinari all this, and I gave her my book on Brothers Hogaev to show it in church. It was after that time when Roland started visiting our flat with conspiracy with Sevak Oganesyan. He stopped losing his weight. He was again with 30 kilograms on. Ruslan persuaded him that it was not treachery, it was good thing, and they kept working against their family together again. What I want to say finally, I want to say on theory of psychotropic therapy. All of you knows that in 30th years of previous century there was broad social movement named anti-psychiatry. Ultimately, it failed, and it was natural outcome because they kept denying disease of psyche. They not only denied psychotropic drugs and physical interference in brains, but disease of psychic itself. But disease exists. Disorder, mental disorder exists. Psychosis exists. And denying it, they denied fact of reality. This is why they failed. But essential causes, reasons, essential reasons of this movement was correct, because this was movement against psychotropic therapy and against physical interference in functioning of brains. It was Karl Jaspers who classified psychosis on two big groups: organic psychosis and non-organic psychosis. That is to say, disease of psychic energy is non-organic psychosis, and disease of brains is organic psychosis. And it was Jaspers who suggested and insisted on strict demarcation between these two groups of psychosis, because any attempts to treat non-organic psychosis with physical interference and functioning of brains is destroying and destruction of brains. To struggle with non-organic psychosis is to prevent them through education and social environment. But even when they have place, it is intellectual therapy, it is psychic therapy, and not pharmacology, and not physical interference and functioning of brains. Because any such interference is destruction, leading to irreversible consequences, irreversible degradation of person. This is production of idiots and imbeciles, and moreover of heavily sick physically people, invalids. And all this is proved in discovery of psychic energy. On movement of anti-psychiatry, I talked particularly in my book Clinic of Dr. Bene Finkel, and I strongly recommend this book to everyone interested in discovery of psychic energy. Thank you.